February 14, 2023, Amundsen Scott's South Pole Station. The last plane of the season takes off, and the door locks. For the next 8 months, the 42 people remaining at the station cannot leave. Not for a heart attack, not for a family emergency, not for any reason. Evacuation is physically impossible until October. During those 8 months, the sun doesn't rise. The temperature drops to minus 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The effective altitude climbs above 11,000 feet, and the crew follows a daily routine that looks nothing like normal life. A plumber tapes tinfoil over his window at night, not because the sun is setting, but because it isn't. A cook rations the last 3 oranges like gold bars. An astrophysicist scrubs grease traps in the kitchen as part of a mandatory rotation. A mechanic experiences memory lapses mid-task and relies on checklists to compensate. These aren't inefficiencies, they're survival mechanisms. Because in Antarctica, routine isn't just a schedule. It's the infrastructure that keeps you sane when your body's clock stops working, when your brain starts skipping thoughts, and when the environment itself rewrites the rules of daily life. This is how Antarctic crews actually live. The strange habits, the contradictions, the systems that look irrational until you understand what they're solving for.
The weather is beautiful today.
Antarctica holds 90% of Earth's ice. A cook at McMurdo Station turns on the shower. 30 seconds to wet down. Water off. Lather. 90 seconds to rinse. Total running time, 2 minutes. This is the Navy shower. At deep field camps and some stations during fuel shortages, it's not a suggestion, it's policy. The continent is frozen water in every direction, but liquid water costs fuel to melt. Melting ice requires diesel or jet fuel shipped from New Zealand or Chile once per summer season. McMurdo can house over 1,000 people in peak summer. 1,000 people showering, cooking, washing dishes, flushing toilets. The math is unforgiving. When a winter storm grounds supply flights for 6 weeks, fuel reserves drop. The station manager cuts shower hours, then cuts them again. Dry shampoo, which costs $3 at a drugstore in Christchurch, becomes tradable. A bottle can buy you a future kitchen shift, a favor, or access to someone's hidden stash of fresh fruit. Baby wipes become hygiene infrastructure. Crews keep packs in their bunks, in the workshop, in the lab. After a 12-hour shift maintaining a generator in a building separated from the main station by a quarter-mile of ice, you don't walk back, strip down, and take a full shower. You wipe down and move on. There's slang for people who stop prioritizing hygiene during the winter months. Crusty. It's used without judgment, because everyone understands the trade-off. You can spend your limited water allowance staying clean, or you can save it for the work that keeps the station alive. Field crews, glaciologists, drivers, drilling teams live in tents on the ice sheet for weeks at a time. They melt snow for drinking water in a pot over a camp stove, which takes 40 minutes and burns through fuel. Washing your hair isn't an option. Washing your hands is a luxury. You sanitize with alcohol wipes and accept that you'll smell like yourself for the next 3 weeks. Field workers describe the psychological impact of finally getting a real shower after weeks on the ice, the overwhelming sensory experience of hot water after extended deprivation. In summer, the sun doesn't set. It circles the horizon, dipping lower around midnight and climbing again by morning, but it never disappears. Your body interprets this as one long afternoon. Without the external cue of darkness, the brain's internal clock, the circadian rhythm, begins to free run. For some people, this means drifting into a 25-hour day. For others, it stretches to 30 hours. You stay awake for 20 hours, sleep for 10, wake up, and the sun is in the same position it was yesterday. The station fights this with infrastructure. Every window in the sleeping quarters is fitted with blackout blinds or improvised coverings, tinfoil, cardboard, duct tape trash bags. Crews call it opening the day when they peel the coverings off in the morning and closing the day when they seal them at night. The ritual forces you to participate in the construction of time. The galley operates on a fixed schedule: breakfast from 7 to 8, lunch from 12 to 1, dinner from 6 to 7. The galley manager rings a bell at the start of each meal period. The bell isn't a courtesy, it's a circadian anchor. If you miss breakfast, the station leader notices. Missing meals signals drift, and drift signals you're going toast. slang for someone whose cognitive function has started to decline. This circadian disruption in constant daylight causes the big eye, insomnia where your body refuses to produce melatonin because it thinks it's still afternoon. Some crew members develop extended wakefulness or sleep in fractured intervals. The station medic distributes melatonin supplements, but they don't always work. In winter, the sun doesn't rise for 8 months. The station uses full-spectrum lamps on 12-hour cycles to simulate daylight. Crew members remove blackout coverings in the morning and turn on these artificial suns. The body learns to respond to this fake sun because the alternative is worse. The clock becomes the only authority when the sun won't cooperate. At the South Pole, the elevation is 9,300 feet, but the effective altitude, the altitude your body experiences, is over 10,000 feet, sometimes as high as 11,000. The reason is atmospheric pressure. Cold air is denser and sinks. The South Pole sits in a high-pressure zone where the weight of the atmosphere is lower than it would be at the same elevation elsewhere on Earth. Lower atmospheric pressure means water boils at a lower temperature. At the South Pole, water boils at roughly 199 degrees Fahrenheit instead of 212. The 13-degree difference rewrites the rules of cooking. Pasta doesn't cook through before it turns to mush. The exterior absorbs water and disintegrates, while the center remains hard. Rice takes twice as long and still comes out crunchy. Beans, even after soaking overnight, never fully soften. They stay firm no matter how long they boil. Baking is worse. Cakes rise too fast in the reduced pressure, then collapse as the structure fails. Bread dough becomes foam, full of air pockets with no integrity. Cookies spread across the pan and burn at the edges before the center sets. The station cook at the South Pole keeps a binder of annotated recipes. Every dish has notes scribbled in the margins. Add 1/4 cup flour. Reduce yeast by half. Bake 15 minutes longer at 25 degrees lower temperature. The annotations are generations deep. Each cook inherits the binder, adds their own corrections, passes it forward. New cooks spend their first 2 weeks producing inedible food. They follow recipes that worked perfectly in their training kitchens at sea level. At altitude, those same recipes fail. The pasta is mush. The bread collapses. The beans are rocks. Eventually, they learn more flour to absorb excess moisture, less leavening to prevent overexpansion, longer cook times at lower temperatures to compensate for the reduced boiling point. It's not intuition, it's physics, and physics doesn't negotiate. At lower altitude stations like McMurdo, the boiling point problem is less severe, but the cold creates its own complications. McMurdo sits at sea level, so water boils normally, but refrigerators are unnecessary. Food is stored in unheated sheds where the ambient temperature stays well below freezing year-round. Milk, vegetables, and meat, all frozen solid within hours of delivery. Freezers, paradoxically, have to work harder. A freezer's job is to maintain a specific cold temperature, usually 0 Fahrenheit. When the exterior temperature drops to -40, the freezer's compressor struggles. It's not designed to create cold. It's designed to maintain a differential between inside and outside. When the outside is colder than the freezer's target, the system goes haywire. Crews joke about defrosting frozen meat by leaving it outside. The joke is accurate. Bringing a frozen chicken indoors to the unheated kitchen and letting it sit on the counter for a few hours is faster than using a microwave. The environment fights even boiling water. Recipes that work everywhere else on Earth fail here. Cooking becomes a technical problem that requires documentation, iteration, and institutional memory passed from one cook to the next. You don't cook by instinct in Antarctica. You cook by checklist. Field crews working on the ice burn between 5,000 and 6,000 calories per day. The body is a furnace, and the fuel requirement is constant. At -40 degrees Fahrenheit, just maintaining core body temperature costs energy. Walking across uneven ice with a 50-pound pack is more costly. Setting up a tent in the wind costs more. Drilling ice cores, operating a snow machine, digging a latrine, all of it is calorie debt. Field rations reflect this. Butter is not a condiment. It's emergency fuel. Crews eat sticks of butter like candy bars. They add chunks of butter to instant coffee, creating a mixture called hoosh, a term borrowed from early Antarctic explorers. The butter melts into the coffee, forming a greasy emulsion that tastes terrible but delivers fat and warmth directly to the stomach. Chocolate bars, peanut butter, nuts, cheese, and salami are packed in quantities that would be excessive anywhere else. Crews routinely consume 5,000 to 6,000 calories per day and still lose weight. Station crews, by contrast, are sedentary. They work indoors. They walk from their quarters to the galley, from the galley to the lab or workshop, from the workshop back to their quarters. Total daily distance, maybe half a mile. Caloric expenditure, 2,000 calories, if that. But the galley is open 24 hours. Food is the only recreational activity available at all times. There are no restaurants, no bars, no coffee shops. The galley is the social center. People gather there between shifts, after shifts, during shifts. Eating becomes the default behavior when you're bored, anxious, or lonely. The result is called the Antarctic 10. The 10 pounds most station crew members gain during their first season. Some gain more. The phenomenon is so predictable that the station gym posts reminders about portion control and offers free fitness classes. Attendance is low. One cook described preparing meals for two groups with opposite needs: field crews who would eat anything as long as it was dense with fat and protein, and station crews who needed vegetables and portion discipline but had access to unlimited cookies and ice cream. Same galley, same continent, opposite metabolic realities. The environment doesn't just shape what you eat, it shapes what your body does with it. At American stations, everyone takes a turn as slushy, kitchen assistant. The term comes from scrubbing the slushy, greasy residue from the bottom of pots. The rotation is mandatory. The station leader scrubs pots. The lead astrophysicist refills milk dispensers. The plumber mops the galley floor. Every crew member is scheduled for slushy duty once or twice a week. This prevents hierarchy. In a closed system where you can't leave for 8 months, enforcing equality at the most basic level keeps resentment from calcifying into factions. There's an informal divide between beakers, scientists, and tradies, the support staff who keep the station operational. Beakers are often seen as privileged and research-focused. Tradies view themselves as the people who actually keep everyone alive. Slushy duty disrupts this. When the astrophysicist is elbow-deep in a grease trap next to the diesel mechanic, the divide softens. Shared unglamorous labor forces a kind of respect, but enforced togetherness has limits. By midwinter, some crew members start ghosting. They withdraw. They eat meals alone in their rooms. They skip social events. They interact only during work hours, and, even then, minimally. In a winter-over station, you see the same faces every day. Small irritations compound. A colleague's habit becomes unbearable. The anger has nowhere to go. Ghosting creates space. The station culture tolerates this withdrawal because the alternative, forcing interaction, leads to blow-ups. Months-long feuds over trivial provocations. The balance required is precise. Enough togetherness to prevent social collapse. Enough isolation to prevent interpersonal implosion. One winter-over described it as living in a spaceship with a crew you didn't choose and can't leave. The station leader scrubbing grease traps doesn't erase that reality. It just makes it slightly more bearable. During an afternoon repair, a mechanic at the South Pole stops mid-task. She's holding a wrench. She knows she needs to tighten a bolt, but for 5 seconds, maybe 10, she can't remember why she's holding the wrench or which bolt she's supposed to tighten. Her mind is blank. Then it clicks back, and she continues. This is Antarctic stare. It's a cognitive lapse that occurs more frequently at high-altitude stations and during winter months. At the South Pole, the effective altitude is over 10,000 feet. Oxygen saturation drops. Add sensory monotony, the same white landscape, the same corridors, the same faces, and the brain starts to disengage. Conversations trail off mid-sentence. You walk into a room and forget why you're there. You stare at a tool in your hand and draw a blank. Winter-overs use the term toast to describe someone whose function has visibly declined. He's completely toast means his cognitive baseline has dropped to the point where you don't assign him tasks that require precision. The station compensates with systems, checklists for everything, not because the crew is incompetent, but because the environment makes everyone less competent. A checklist doesn't forget. Radio check-ins are mandatory. If you're working alone in a remote building, you call the station every 30 minutes. The protocol confirms you're still functional. If you miss a check-in, someone comes looking. Buddy systems are enforced for outdoor work. Two people are less likely to both experience a cognitive lapse at the same time. One person forgets the next step, the other remembers. Your brain becomes unreliable. The routine compensates. Checklists, check-ins, buddies. The station builds scaffolding around your failing cognition because it has to. At McMurdo Station, there's a building called Skua. It's named after the Antarctic seabird, known for scavenging and stealing food. Inside, you'll find clothing, books, electronics, kitchen appliances, tools, and sometimes bizarre items like disco balls. This is the scavenger economy. When crew members finish their contracts and prepare to leave, they can't take everything. Weight limits on flights are strict, so they dump their excess in Skua. Incoming crew members go straight to Skua to outfit themselves. You might find a high-end parka, a coffee maker, and winter boots in your size. You take what you need. You use it for the duration of your contract. When you leave, you return it to Skua. Ownership is temporary. You're not buying or keeping these items. You're borrowing them from the collective pool. In a place where money is useless and resupply is limited, communal resources make more sense than private property. The verb skua has entered station slang. If you leave your fries unguarded in the galley, someone might skua them. Are you going to eat that, or can I skua it? The question acknowledges that waste is intolerable and that unclaimed resources are fair game. At bag drag, the pre-departure ritual where you haul luggage to be weighed, you're weighed with your bags. Every ounce of fuel on the plane is calculated. If your bags are too heavy, you open them on the spot and start removing items. Those items go to Skua. This economy works because everyone participates. Hoarding is socially unacceptable. The system is self-regulating through social pressure. In a place where money can't buy anything, value inverts. A bottle of dry shampoo is worth more than cash. A fresh orange is worth 2 future work shifts. Possession without property. Currency without money. June 21st, midwinter, the darkest day of the year in Antarctica. At stations across the continent, this is the biggest holiday, bigger than Christmas, bigger than New Year's. The cook at Concordia Station has been hoarding ingredients for months. Lobster tails, truffles, aged cheese, premium chocolate. These items arrived on the last supply flight in February and have been hidden in a corner of the freezer ever since, save for this one meal. Midwinter dinner is a feast, multiple courses, wine if the station has it, decorations, music. The entire crew sits together, and for a few hours, the station feels less like a survival outpost and more like a celebration. After dinner, stations from all nations, American, Russian, Chinese, British, Australian, French, German, radio each other to exchange greetings. It's a moment of global unity, a recognition that everyone on the continent is enduring the same darkness, the same isolation, the same psychological pressure. Later, some stations screen movies. A strange tradition has emerged, watching The Thing, a horror film about an alien shapeshifter infiltrating an Antarctic research station, or The Shining, about a man going insane in an isolated hotel during winter. It's dark humor. At least we're not them. The films provide psychological distance. Your situation is hard, but it's not that hard. Midwinter exists because winter is when the door locks. Unlike summer, when planes can land and people can leave, winter means absolute cutoff. If someone has a heart attack, they wait. If someone gets a call that a family member is dying, they wait. Evacuation is not an option. The station becomes a sealed environment, a spaceship on the surface of a frozen planet. The psychological weight of this is difficult to overstate. You can't quit. You can't leave early. You're committed to the duration, and the duration is 8 months. Everyone at the station knows this. Everyone is living with the same constraint. The feast compensates. It's a collective acknowledgement of endurance. You've made it to the halfway point. The sun will return. The door will unlock. But not yet. At the South Pole, there's another tradition that only happens during the coldest days of winter. It's called the 300 Club. The event requires the ambient temperature to drop to minus 100 degrees Fahrenheit or colder. This happens only a handful of times each winter. When the temperature hits that threshold, the crew cranks the station sauna up to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. They sit in the sauna until they can't take it anymore, usually 10 to 15 minutes. Then they run outside, wearing only boots. and sprint to the ceremonial South Pole marker. They run a lap around the pole and back to the sauna. The temperature differential is 300 degrees. The sweat on your body flash freezes instantly. Your breath crystallizes in front of your face. Your skin burns from the cold. The experience lasts maybe 90 seconds, but it's a rite of passage. You've joined the 300 Club. You've done something only a few hundred people in human history have done. The ritual isn't recklessness, it's calculated. The exposure time is short enough to avoid frostbite if you move quickly. The risk is manageable, but the psychological impact is significant. In an environment that passively threatens you every moment, through cold, through darkness, through isolation, the 300 Club lets you actively confront that threat. You're not a victim of the environment. You're engaging with it on your terms. The shock to your system is voluntary. The challenge is chosen. One Poley described it as the only time during the winter when he felt in control. The rest of the time, the station dictated his schedule, his sleep, his social interactions. But running naked into minus 100 degrees? That was his decision. Routine isn't just survival, it's sanity. The blackout blinds enforce sleep. The galley bell enforces time. Slushy duty enforces equality. Checklists compensate for cognitive drift. SCUA distributes resources. Midwinter provides purpose. And when the environment strips away every normal anchor, sunlight, family, freedom, even reliable cognition, the crew builds new anchors. Manual, deliberate, strange to outsiders but rational to anyone who understands what they're solving for. The door locks. The sun disappears. The body stops working correctly. And the routine holds you together until the sun comes back. The last supply plane arrives in spring. The door unlocks. The winter-over crew boards the aircraft for the flight north. They've spent 8 months living inside contradictions, surrounded by ice but rationed for water, enforcing togetherness while practicing isolation, trusting checklists because their own minds became unreliable, eating butter from a stick or gaining weight from boredom, depending on which side of the station they worked. They rang bells to create time. They taped tinfoil over the windows to simulate night. They scrubbed grease traps to prevent class wars. They ran naked into minus 100 degrees to feel in control. The environment didn't give them a choice. The sun disappeared. The temperature dropped. The brain drifted. The body betrayed them. And the only response that worked was structure. Rigid, manual, deliberate structure. Routine became infrastructure. The schedule became life support. The strange daily habits of Antarctic crews aren't quirks. They're solutions to problems most people will never face. The door unlocks, the plane takes off, and the next crew arrives to begin the cycle again.